The severity and fatality of the coronavirus within the first month, that was in February to March, prompted the response by the Nigerian government, person of President Muhammadu Buhari now as a leader, announcing the lockdown in some states, at Lagos, Ogun, as well as the Federal Capital Territory, which was hit by COVID-19 as at that time. Now, on 27th of April, the president to declare the gradual easing of the 5 weeks restriction order, necessitated by so many other parameters to include curfew from 8 p.m. to about 6 a.m. And that also took effect till about May 4th. Till about 17th, there were some other phases to actually contain the spread of the dreaded coronavirus. Now, subsequently, the first phase of the lockdown was extended by another 2 weeks, which elapsed Monday, June 1st. Chairman Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and Secretary to the Government of the Federation during the daily briefing on Monday said President Buhari had approved the commencement of the second phase for another initial period of 4 weeks. So that means from that second to about 29th day of June, we'll have another window to see how we're faring in containing coronavirus in Nigeria. The federal government instituted regulations and guidelines to be put in place by state governments, and sustaining the fight in flattening the curve is our worry. What are the prerequisite measures for implementation for Nigeria today? And we also appreciate your joining us so far on the different aspects of our management of COVID-19. What are we looking at in this second phase? What do we need to do differently as we gradually open up the economy and other areas to get our lives back as we have been asking for it? Welcome to the program. My name is Blessing Abu. I'd like to welcome to the program the chairman, the FCT Ministerial Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Iharo Atta. Welcome to the program.
A very wonderful evening, a blessing.
Yes. Joining him on set is Dr. Heme Ogbonaya. He's a consultant family physician and medical director, Prime Care Hospitals, Gwarimpa, here in the FCT. Welcome.
My pleasure, as always, Blessing.
Okay, let's get things in perspective. There are guidelines. Even in the previous lockdown measures, even when it was eased, there were guidelines, there were some other protocols that were to be followed, and now there are some other ones added or perhaps tweaked here and there. What is different from what we had before, and then what more are being added to actually help the people get back into shape? Sata.
Yeah, from our own point of view as enforcers, what is different is that our job is going to be more complex this time. Unlike the previous time when we really had the religious bodies just being closed, now they are going to be open with so much guidelines that we need to go in and enforce. That's why I keep hammering whenever we met with the Khan leadership and the Council of Ulamas and Imam that the religious body must own the process, so that we do little of enforcement here, so that they run the process, particularly when it comes to the issue of ensuring health protocols within the church setting. Although we have a guideline that the FCT Minister Malam Mohammed Musa Bello will bring in out tomorrow or next to guide our church worship. That is on the one side here. On the other side here is we'll be seeing a very different behavioral response, because we had always anticipated that, because persons have been out of business, some of them for 3 months. We'll be seeing more persons trying to reflex muscle. The other one, we'll be seeing our border post, because the interstate ban is still there. We'll see the border post in the FCT suffering pressure, because whether we like it or not, the truth is that many states have not really followed through with that border restriction enforcement. Even we who are doing it, we still see persons are coming in a manner that also worries us a lot. We will see so much pressure and mounting on that side. What we do not want to see is what I think Doctor and others will talk about here: an increase in the number of persons with COVID-19. That's what we really do not want to see. And we'll see very tough time, many persons here from our own point of view trying to return back quickly to the old ways of doing things. That means we'll likely see persons trying to think COVID-19 is over, done and dusted. We'll see persons trying to overload their vehicles, which they have not done in some weeks. We'll see some persons getting fed up of the face masks. Putting it on will become so difficult, which they appear to have been used to in a few weeks. we're going to see several behavioral changes, which we as enforcers, we try to do and tell people that even if we are not medical practitioners, they have told us these are the things you need to do. And the president and commander-in-chief through the SGF, who is the PTF chairman, had given us guidelines, and we are going out to enforce that, and we are sure that we enforce compliance. But I know it's going to be tough.
Dr. Ogunaya,
Yes.
there are worries from the health practitioners as well. Yes, even the first phase of the ease on lockdown, we saw the numbers that pushed out, and we saw the numbers too for confirmed cases shooting up.
Yeah.
Where are your greatest worries now?
Yeah, just like the chairman has rightly pointed out, a lot of people are going to really pour out into the streets, when this phase is going to come into effect. And COVID-19, by virtue of, by how the transmission is as easy as you talk about, as easy as respiratory droplets, even by mere talking and all kinds of things. A lot of people still do not as much as possible comply with the basic measures that have been put into place to fight COVID-19. So we are actually seeing a situation whereby if people find it difficult to even put face masks, if people find it difficult to even maintain social distancing, if people find it difficult to even as much as wash their hands, use hand sanitizers like most people are wont to, we actually think that we fear for the rising cases that we're going to see in this particular phase. So I mean, it worries a lot. But on the other side, we are also looking at a situation whereby with the enforcers coming into play, as much as possible, making sure that these strategies are complied with the barest minimum. We are thinking that as much as possible, we are thinking that those rates may really go down, and then Nigeria will be better for it.
Okay, let's get to some further areas of interest. You've talked about the religious bodies, and also you pointed out the areas of interboundaries as between states now. Yeah. And of course we know there are some states that the workers reside in one part. Let's take FCT. We have workers coming from Nasarawa, we have some coming from Niger, even some from Kogi. Likewise, we have states like Lagos bordered by Ogun State and also Oyo State, and people, these are some of the questions that are already rising on the lips of people. What do you think will be happening to such? Because definitely, if people are going to be having partial movements or restricted movements based on agricultural produce and all of this one, but those who are also willing to resume work, how do we contend with that?
I think I have said this before, and I have said it on several gatherings, and I have maintained it, and I'll keep saying it here, even if sometimes it is not followed. If you look at society and Abuja as a city, for instance, you cannot create a boundary besides physical boundary between Abuja and Karo, local government of Nasarawa State. You cannot create a boundary between Abuja and Suleja in Niger State and Tafa in Kaduna State. You just cannot at all. Because if you look at New Karo local government, look at areas like Zuba and Madala, some persons' houses in organic settlement, you have the bedroom in FCT and the sitting room in Nasarawa State, in Niger State. You have the same along the long border stretch between Abuja and Nasarawa State. Now, when you look at all of this going forward, the fundamental thing here is we must look for a way to make workers come with ease. I won't tell you, like on Sunday, I just took a drive. Let all these uniform men, all these armed men leave me alone. I entered into the traffic build-up on Sunday, which is not a very busy day. I turned from the sharp corner in Admaraba. It took me 2.5 hours to come out 2.5 hours in a place I can traverse in 4 minutes. 4 minutes, I'll just drive past. 2.5 hours.
So what was the problem?
Now, the problem is that it's blocked. It's a physical boundary, but there is no social boundary. While we block that place, many persons trek with their legs, and on the other aspect, we see taxi drivers. So what we have discussed, and I think the Commissioner of Police have also observed that, I mean, have observed it, people there come with so much difficulty. And when the FCTA with the minister is reviewing all of this process, I know all of this will be brought to the table alongside the ones of the churches and others, because if you look at it from the Madala end, the Zuba end is not as tight as it is on the other end. So sometimes when we have no social boundary, no religious boundary, let me tell you what happened on Sunday. Nasarawa State already opened their own churches and their mosques. On Friday, people from Yanya, Karu, cross over to pray Jumat. On Sunday, you see families trekking across the border with their kids to attend church service. So whatever they get there, if there is corona there, they bring into Abuja because they will trek back after church. So we must see it as if to a point that there is no border within these two communities. And we start to look at the way that, look, we can look at the way that we can cut out a boundary almost before Kefi. But when you look at it from that stretch from Altaba, Alefi, Masaka, Maraba, Ado, One Man Village down to Abuja, you're not going to find one stretch. One point of everyone there is, they are all coming towards Abuja, and it's something that we must, because most times you see NTA bus, I'm sorry, trapped in traffic bureau. The staff live there very large.
Yes, we know you're always watching out for every one of us. Okay, Dr. A.M., let's take a look at some of the things that people will be confronted with. Already, we'll talk about droplets going as far as some meters as measured by the scientists already. But then we know people will be moving in spaces, other forms of institutions, from like banks. Of course, marketplace already still on, but banks have resumed fully, and some other offices that will now be in full operation. What should people be watching out for, and how careful should they be in such locations?
Well, if we must address that from the basics, we have always emphasized the fact that as much as possible, social distancing, as much as possible, we should wear a mask, face mask. Now, the fact still remains, the fact that is that these services we are talking about are important services as far in the life of every country. Okay. So, just like, some people are wondering, why would, with a spiking in the number of cases, the PTF will want to relax, will further relax the lockdown. Now, we are looking at the economic point of view. Now, as far as we are concerned, if you had maintained the lockdown as far as it was going to be, we are looking at the economic effects. That was actually why the PTF considered in lifting as much as possible, relaxing the lockdown. Now, it now behoves on us, those of us who are going to, as much as possible, enjoy these services. Whether we're talking about the banks, of course, you likely pointed out, the markets have always been, on. Now we're looking at other congregational services, churches, mosques, and so on and so forth. Now it behoves on us, as much as individuals, first and foremost, to assume some level of responsibility, knowing that these strategies have always been, they keep preaching these strategies as much every day, every second. We keep hearing them on jingles and so on and so forth. Make sure your hands are washed, make sure you wear your face mask, maintain social distances. Now, because these services have to come on board, it's also, as much as we know as individuals, we must as much as well try to maintain these strategies. We also look at the organizers of such services, the bankers themselves. We also need to reach out to them as much as well, enforce these regulations to the best of their ability. We go to churches. What is churches and mosques, as like we are also going to expect in the coming weeks? What is expected of the leadership? We are going to expect the minimum preventive practices. Getting as much of equipping themselves with infrared thermometers. Making sure that we are places people can wash their hands. Maintaining strictly this social distance, at least 2 meter. at least 2 meters apart, wherever they find themselves, and as much as possible making sure people use their hand sanitizers. I'm sure these are the basic things that these services, these particular places are expected to do, and to as much as possible contribute to scaling down the level of infection.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going on a break now. When we return, of course, there's still aspects of the curfew which has been extended now from 10 p.m. till about 4 a.m. And we also know that some other things are still at the back of Nigerians, whether this is still real, and if it's still not real to them, I don't know what should be. What more do we need to do to ensure that community transmission is actually brought to its various minimum? You're watching Nigeria Today, and our focus is on COVID-19, the second phase of the ease of lockdown. What more? We'll be right back after this break.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
This is Nigeria Today, and I still have my guest, Dr. Eheme Ogbonaya, as well as Ikaru Atab. Both of them taking a look at what's up with COVID-19 and this second phase is of lockdown on the community. Let's take a look at what I raised earlier before the break. The curfew now is extended from 10 p.m. till about 4, and we know people either to have been even moving those odd hours, making sure they want to quickly beat the Secretary's task force, as well as other law enforcement agents on the way. How do we help out this time to make sure, actually, one, they stay safe and they stay out of trouble by not getting in your ways?
I think if you have a curfew from 10 p.m. till 4, I think it's more of a conventional sleeping time for us in Africa, because we sleep, we are timed people, let me use that word now. In some parts of the world they don't sleep, in some parts of the world people walk throughout, but in our own case here, once you go out from 8:30, 9, 10, you discover that majority of us, about 95% of us, were already gone to sleep. So I think if we have a curfew, it's just normal. If we have a curfew, most of us would have finished our job. The few ones who are left will have to go. But like what I advise persons here, try and retire home early. The first time of the curfew, you saw some of the things we saw out there. We saw persons who were assaulted, ladies who were assaulted, we saw one who was stabbed and all of that. It's good to stay at home and stay safe. But for us, the enforcers, it makes our job a lot easier now. People can move freely till about 10. Normally, before, once it gets to 8 o'clock, I just know that I will stop everything and start to answer calls from journalists, from health workers, from pharmacists, all of them telling me we are stuck up, we are stuck, and we will start to see where are you stuck so that we can get you out. Those who are not supposed to be, we arrest. Those who are supposed to be,
but
we clear.
But the calls are still there, even or are still going to come, because some people still work beyond that time.
No, like but we only advise them, if you are not among those who are essential, like medical workers, please. You see, we never had any problem with anybody. The problem we had is with those persons who ought not to be there. They will be the first to come and block the road. And a doctor will leave his car, trek to meet us, and sometimes ask us, I'm a doctor, I'm going to work. He won't talk about the persons who have blocked about 15 cars ahead of him who ought not to be. But what do? Do we allow the 15 cars who are illegally moving to move? To clear one person who is legal? We find a way around to keep them, to detain them. Some of them we have to keep them, take them out to mobile court. We find just a way to handle the situation. And the good ones who are like yourself, journalists, security agencies, the health workers, will now be stuck in, and they will feel very pain and feel very bad. And they don't even tell the persons who ought not to be there that you ought not to be here in the first place. Why block my way? They will come to us who are the enforcers. Why did you block the road? I ought to go. We say, I told some people, we are very sorry. The wrong guys are here. And to turn the wrong guys back, most time they just stand. Some of them, I think at most times we have this problem, but like what I said, we create the indulgence of those persons who are really sincere, genuine, particularly the health worker, particularly the security personnel, particularly journalists and others. They feel so bitter that the road is blocked. But most times we beg them for understanding that many of you are genuine.
I'm sure they've been
and the wrong guy. But I think the 10 p.m. to 4 will be good for us.
Okay. The Minister of Health earlier today, today's briefing, said this phase of combating coronavirus is in the hands of the people more than the government. And what could that imply?
Yeah, it's obvious. It's a very, very clear statement. You know, just like we have always known, people need to be more, I think as much as possible, the awareness has gone out. Whether we want to accept that or not, that fact or not, the awareness has gone out. A lot of people know what to do. You don't need the enforcers, as far as I'm concerned. You don't need enforcers to come and show you what to do. I mean, that you should stay at home. I mean, like as far as we know, the essence of doing the curfew, like has been rightly been pointed out, is for us to reduce the exposure to the infection. Now, if we are able to as much as possible comply with the curfew, and as much observe all the preventive measures. With all the knowledge at hand, every day we talk about, we update people COVID-19, how transmission, how to avoid it, how not to be among the statistics. I'm sure the Honorable Minister of Health has made his point. If he says that now it is now in the hands of people. Now, I'm sure with all the knowledge that is available on people preventive, yes, people should be able to observe.
Quickly, before I get the final word from Psychiatrist. The curfew not the curfew, beg your pardon, flights will resume by the third week of this month. And for those who have not even flown for some time, they will quickly want to catch on that. If they cannot make use of the roads, now the air is going to be available. I know if you're up there, it's air pressure versus so many other things, and this is something that we have to contend with as well. What advice will you be giving for those who will be flying very soon? Yeah, it still doesn't depart from the regular practices. Yes, the regular practices as much as possible. Social. Now, the beautiful thing about it is that directives have been given to these airlines that they have to fly at 50% capacity. Now, this is to as much as possible also reduce the contacts. Exactly. Between passengers. Now, guaranteed, because good a thing, WHO has also come to rebuke the fact that COVID-19 is not airborne. It doesn't stay in the air for long. The data is just that you inhale aerosols. So, as much as possible, if the passengers are able to, if the airline operators are able to, as much as possible, obey the 50% capacity, and then of course everybody wears face masks, and then observe all those preventive measures that are necessary for COVID-19. I'm sure that the rate of transmission in flight will gradually reduced. Sakaro, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think, but the first thing I want to appeal for, as with my little knowledge in aviation, all the plane must undergo check. They've been on the ground for so long. If possible, they can fly for just an hour or two to check how stable they are. That's just an advice, so that we don't have plane falling off the sky. They've not been around for long. Like the other one, which you also see, I think the people,
especially areas of altitude now.
No. The people must own the process. It makes the job easier for us. If you own the process, we may not even need to have too much of enforcers coming around. If you own the process, you must see it from the standpoint that your life, your safety is involved. If you are among the persons who have been somewhat reconvinced that COVID-19 is not real, please please and please, I think you have to reconvince yourself again that it is real. It may not be very endemic here in the West African sub-region, but please, we have seen that, we have seen corpses, we have seen persons going to their grave as a result of COVID-19. Let's own the process, so that when we own the process, we will drive it. The health workers will give us the guide. We follow the health protocols as non-health workers and health workers inclusive, and together I'm confident that we can and truly defeat COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Haro Acha, Chairman FCT Ministerial Task Force on COVID-19. Thank you for your insights on the program.
Thank you very much.
I also appreciate Dr. Hemi Bonaya, Consultant Family Physician and Medical Director, Prime Care Hospitals, Gorimpa, Abuja.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the program. We also like to appreciate you for staying with us on the program. You can watch this edition or any other edition online at youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Blessing Abu. Enjoy the rest of the day.